Last time we talked about ratios, today we talk about rates. They're the same thing, there's just a slight little difference between them. Ratios measure things that have the same units. So a ratio would be something like this. If we say 5 feet to 15 feet as a ratio, this guy ends up reducing because the feet are the same unit. And you reduce the 5 to 15 to become what? 1/3. So if that was your ratio, then it becomes a 1 to 3 ratio. We could write it as 1/3, and we could also say 1 to 3. We wrote it like that before. Okay. But notice there are no units here because the units are exactly the same, a 1 to 3 ratio. If we talked about, if you ever looked for colleges, looked at information, you see these yearly reports about the best colleges to go to. Of course, if you have $50,000 a year, sometimes they talk about the student to teacher ratio, even when they do the education report here in the greater metropolitan area. They'll talk about the student to teacher ratio at these schools, right? And a lot of times we want it to be a lower student to teacher ratio, right? So you might see something like this. The student to teacher ratio is, say, 14 to 1. So the student to teacher ratio. And the units that we're measuring here are people. That's why we don't have units listed, because they're the same, 14 to 1. Okay? Now, this doesn't mean that each class only has 14 students, but it means on average, for every 14 students that there are at this school or institution, there would be 1 teacher. Okay? And of course, the lower that number is, mentally we think the better it's going to be, because more attention will be able to be paid to each student. Just like if you're taking this class and there are about 15 to 20 of you. That's pretty good compared to being 1 out of 300 in a lecture hall in a college algebra class at a university. This is Cheers, where everybody knows your name. It's not going to be that way at a major university and a huge Common Core class like a general chemistry or college algebra class or even a history class, unless you get lucky. That's why they have honors programs, much smaller classes. But when we talk about rates, this right here is basically, it's just a ratio with different units. So we're still going to be working with these guys the same way we worked with ratios, but now we're going to have different units. And you see rates before. We talked about this last time. We talked about someone here who was banking, making $12 per 1 hour. Okay. So if I look at this as a ratio, this is a ratio of 12 to 1, but it's a rate. So I understand this is $12 to 1 hour of work. And again, as we were talking about earlier today, we can take this information and extrapolate this. So if our young entrepreneur were to work, say, 6 hours, then about how much money would they earn? How would you figure that out? Using general knowledge, not any math at all. Well, if 1 hour is $12, for 6 hours it would be $72, right? Just by multiplying times 6, because there's that rate that goes along with that. And if you were to look at it like this, $72 for every 6 hours. This reduces back to the $12 per hour. You guys agree with me on that? This is a rate. The rate here is dollars to hour. You guys see rates like this whenever you are driving, I hope. Sometimes we get very lazy when we talk about this. If I say, what is the speed limit on Fry Road? You guys may say, oh, the speed limit's 40. Right? Now, what are we missing here when we say the speed limit is 40? What are we missing? We're missing units. Have I ever stressed to you guys that units are important? Sometimes, maybe, like every day. So you would say miles per hour. We write MPH, but we understand that what this really is that you can travel at a rate of 40 miles per 1 hour. That is the posted speed limit, which you are never to exceed. To 60?
You drive on Pride Road? Do you drive on Pride Road?
I'm not driving 60 miles an hour if it's a...
Other people do.
Yeah.
They think it's
Oh, I'm so sorry. It is okay to break the law as long as everybody else is doing it. So if we were ever to have some kind of purge or something like that, right? Is that? And if ever no. So hold on. I'm sorry. It's my YouTube channel. So if everybody were to be, busting caps and breaking in and stealing and killing people, then that's okay, right?
I'm not saying it's okay. I was just making a comment.
If all your friends
If all of your friends
jumped off the bridge, would you do it too?
How tall is the bridge? And how tall the bridge is.
Yeah. Yes, that's right. That's right, Dennis. Everything in moderation. I don't even think I can do this. You guys are just driving me crazy. Now, don't even give me that look. I don't need the eyelash flutter. Now, one of the really important things that we talk about with rates is what we call unit rates. And this is more of what you guys use. That's what we're even talking about here. Unit rates. This is when we have, this is basically when the denominator is equal to 1. Okay? When we talk about 40 miles per hour, that's 40 miles for every 1 hour. It's easier for us to grab onto that. Okay? If you go buy bananas, I like bananas. But bananas, in my hood, they're 96 cents for 2 pounds. Now, do they actually have that sign posted that it's 96 cents per 2 pounds? No, because they know that people can't do math. So what do they put?
What it is for 1 day.
They put the cost per 1 pound, right? And what's the cost per 1 pound? How do you reduce this? See, this is why they help us at the grocery store. It's 48 cents a pound, right? When you buy produce or you buy most meat, it's sold by what? It's sold by the pound. So when you walk into your carniceria, you buy it by the pound. Why is that so funny? Because you don't think I go to carniceria? There's a Fiesta right down the road. It's close enough. Now, and let me tell you this. I tell you about Costco, right? I'm a fan of Costco. Now, if you go buy their organic ground beef, they don't sell it by the pound. Okay? And they don't even tell you how much it is per pound. Of course, it doesn't. Most sometimes doesn't even matter. But it is about this. It's about $18 for 4 pounds. You look at that and you go, oh, and goodness, that's so expensive. Who would ever buy meat for that much? Gosh. But wait a minute. Do the math here. Find the unit cost. What is the cost per pound? Why what? Well, because it's one of these bulk places. You're not going to buy just a pound of meat. You buy enough meat to feed a small village. That's what you do. When you go in there, you don't buy, a 4-package thing of toilet paper. No, you buy a package of 80 rolls of toilet paper because they don't want you to run out. So if it's $18 per pound, how do I figure out the cost per pound? Divide. Oh, there's our best friend. Thanks, Mr. Calculator. You're welcome. So if I do the math here, which I've already done in my head because I'm a bala, you know. So I'm going to do 18. Oh, you just got a shot at the answer because you're so awesome. All right, fine. 18 divided by 4 gives me 4.5. So what does that mean? That means that the unit cost is what? $4.50 per what? Per pound. Now, does that still sound expensive, Lisa? Okay, what kind of meat are you buying?
I don't buy a lot of ground beef, so.
Okay, well, we do ground beef at my house, so sorry for all you vegans and vegetarians out there.
That pink slime thing just,
The pink slime?
yeah, I never got over that.
Okay, now, just so you know, this all goes back to being a consumer. This right here is for organic ground beef, okay? Which I think $4.50 a pound really isn't that bad. When you compare, see, sometimes we don't understand what numbers mean until we have something to compare it to, right? So let me compare this to, this is the meat, if I'm going to go to H-E-B, this is the meat I usually buy. It's 96.4. You understand what that means, right? Only 4% fat, 96% lean. So at H-E-B, I think the last time that I bought it, it was $4.98 for a 1 pound package. So what's going to be the better deal? It's as long as you can use it within the expiration time, right? It's a lot cheaper to get this. Now, the problem with that is that you have to have a place to put it. Okay?
Freezer, if you can go to Costco, but.
Yeah, if you've got a good stand-up freezer, or even a deep, big one, whatever. But if I just need if the only thing I'm cooking this week is just one meal that has ground beef, I'm just going to buy this. Even though this is cheaper per pound, if I don't have room to store it, then that means I'm going to have half of this money wasted and thrown in the trash. So we want to compare unit costs to see what the better deal is, right? Stay tuned for some really